He said it was work related.
Traveling for work. So with that, can I have a motion to that effect? Motion by
Second.
Nelson, second by Alderwoman Wilson. Welcome, Alderman Tillman. You're allowed to participate.
You gotta do a roll call.
Roll call, please.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
All right, first item on the agenda, public comment. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak in reference to any item on the agenda? With that, the next item is the mayor's report. I don't have a report for the mayor. The fourth item on the agenda is the ordinance levying taxes in city paying city for the 2024 year extended in the year 2025, fiscal year beginning May 1 of 2025 to April 30th, 2026. With that, John?
You need to mute his phone. Call him back. He don't want to hear that.
Okay.
Tell him mute his phone.
Good evening, Alderman, as well as public department heads. Before you today is the tax levy ordinance. If you all will recall, back on December 4th, we had a meeting where we talked about how the tax levy ordinance was put together. And in that meeting, I reflected that the tax levy extension was going to be the same in 2025 tax levy as it was in year 24. That was, I don't know if anybody brought their spreadsheet or that yellow tax levy booklet that I presented to everybody at prior meetings. But the worksheet, which is nothing more than a recap, I'm just recapping what you already had, reflected the fact that last year's tax levy extension for the corporate, police, fire, IMRF, Social Security, and library totaled $31,262,174. The levy presented today is exactly $31,262,724. The breakdown is exactly the way we discussed it on the December 4th meeting, which, following the truth and taxation statutes, which requires that's why we had the meeting on the 4th, we announced that the tax levy was going to have a 0% increase over the prior year tax extension. That's following the truth and taxation. So the levy before you today has all of the grand totals, and then within the levy ordinance that's presented to you today, that levy ordinance starts off taking the appropriation for the funds that were levied, starting with the corporate fund, and we show you how much of the tax dollars are being allocated from the tax levy to support the corporate fund. So to just, and this for those aldermen that are new, because this is the first time going through, if you look at your tax levy ordinance and you go to page 9, no, I'm just going to talk about the levy ordinance. Actually, go to page 6. That's the document. I didn't know you didn't have it, but I just handed it out to you now, so I'm sorry it's a little bit smaller. But it was emailed, but it would have been able to be enlarged there. But I just wanted to show you that the numbers are at least tying out. I want to make sure everybody knows that when I tell you that the numbers in this ordinance are tying out to what was the direction that I got from Wisconsin on December 4th. So if you start on page 6, if you notice the heading on the top is the insurance department. So the corporate levy that was discussed on the 4th was $13,956,510. That levy then, that total levy is going to be broken down in this levy ordinance. We're going to levy $850,000 to cover workers' comp claims. There'll be another $300,000 to cover fleet and liability insurance. And if you look, the appropriation is the last column on the right. That is what we appropriated in the prior year, or in the year that we're in right now. So you can see that the workers' comp and the fleet and liability, those are the only two line items that we're using to help fund this department out of the tax levy. So the total is $1,150,000. The next line item, the next department is the police department. Of the tax levy, $150,000 is going to be used for captains, $200,000 for lieutenants, $700,000 for sergeants, $3,150,000 for patrolmen, $200,000 for records clerk, $500,000 for the telecommunicators, and $350,000 for overtime. So out of that almost $14 million of the corporate tax levy, $5,250,000 is going to be used to help support the police department as far as finances. And you can see that the total appropriation exceeds $11 million. So this is barely less than half of just the salary cost of the police department. If we continue on to page 9, which is the fire department. So if you see dashes in the tax levy, that means none of the tax dollars are going to be used to cover those costs. We're going to get those from other sources, such as our state income tax, state sales tax, replacement taxes, and the various local taxes, fees, and fines that the city has. In the fire department, captains, part of the tax levy, $330,000 is going to pay captain salaries, lieutenants, $185,000, engineers, $500,000, firefighters, $1,860,000, overtime, $300,000. Total tax dollars being used for salaries of the fire department, $3,175,000. And if you look at the budget, it's over $6.7 million. So again, the tax levy is covering less than half of just the salaries and not subsidizing any other costs in the fire department. You go to the very last page of the corporate fund, which will be on page 12. The balance of tax dollars that we will collect, that we're extending, $3,991,510 is being allocated for the city's health and welfare insurance fund. $400,000 is being allocated to the Union Health and Welfare Fund. So for personal services under the special corporate, total levy is $4,391,510, and the total expenditures in this department, it's almost come up to $7 million. You go down to the very bottom, that's where I'm driving to here, because the total levy is $13,966,510, and that's exactly what was approved by the city council. This format of how we allocate the tax levy dollars is, as you see, it's been that way for at least 20, 25 or more years. Reason being is most of the tax dollars are just basically funding salaries of public safety, and they're also handling portions of the city health insurance, the union health insurance, some workers' comp, and general liability. All other costs of the city, including the entire public works department, building department, other departments, that's coming from general funds other than through real estate taxes. Does anybody have any questions?
Yes. So I am okay with the police and fire, and a portion of the corporate fund. What would it look like if we were to reduce the $31 million tax levy?
We already, we're asking the question today.
Yeah.
But the city council told me to extend the same as last year.
Well, so I think that was before we had an understanding that we have a mayor that continues to hire when we say don't hire, continues to spend when we say don't spend, and now the property taxpayer is going to be on the hook for a lot of stuff. Police and fire, that's just something that we have to make sure that they're taken care of, our first responders. I'm concerned about the more we tax our constituents and the residents of Calumet City, the more this administration will spend. There are new people hired every day, and we don't have the money for it. And I don't want to see us filling a gap because, like I like to say, I live here. So our taxes are ridiculous. And anything that could save us just a little bit, that's all I'm asking. What would it look like?
Well, I think the question is, Alderman, gotta tell me a number. I mean, what would it look like? You want
So-
to knock $1 million off, you knock $1 million off. That's what it'll be. $2 million off, $2 million off. I can only tell you that the city has, the treasurer's here, he can attest to this. We have a cash flow problem.
Yeah.
Take these tax dollars away, that's fine. It's gonna end up resulting in some tragic cuts, and that would be across the board in all departments.
Absolutely. And I think it's time for that.
I'm talking, because I've already had conversations, we are running a deficit, we ran a deficit last year. This is not helping the deficit, because it's still keeping us at the same tax dollars that we were at last year. So, and if you notice again, these tax dollars, as you just pointed out, they're only going for public safety.
Yeah.
There's no public works, there's no administrative salaries here, there's no building department, economic development department, none of those, they all have the dashes, none of the tax dollars are gonna be utilized to cover those costs. The balance that's not covering salaries is covering our insurance for city employees, which include all city employees, of course, the union insurance, the workers' comp, which we're self-funded on, and the fleet and liability. And as I mentioned, all these numbers, that's not, if you were to take just the personal services of those departments, they're more than double what we have in the tax levy. So the tax levy is not covering 100%. I can understand if it was 100%, but it's not. So if you say lower it, well, we don't have other funds that are gonna kind of absorb those costs.
So we would be forced to cut some of this.
I think that's gonna be an inevitable discussion.
Yeah, but I as a property taxpayer, I don't want to pay taxes, and it's not going to help anything anyway. But I'm going to have an increase in taxes. I agree with 15 million of this. It's the other 15, 16 million. I just cannot. I just don't see it. Every day on my block, somebody is getting taxed out of their house, and even though Calumet City's portion of the taxes is very minimal compared to the county's portion and all of the other school districts and everything. But I'm elected here, and I see it every day. We have new people being hired, which increases the insurance premiums, which increases the fees that we have to pay on employees, which is in this tax money. So, so what would it look like if we cut it by 15 million?
You're cutting all the corporate levy money. I'll be very honest and just shut the city down, period. Take 15 million away, you don't have enough money to run the city any longer. I mean, we're ready, ask the treasurer, we're ready. What really needs to be done is some hard data. What you're talking about, like, it's outside of the levy. That is not the answer. The answer, every question you're bringing up is, you need to sit down and we need to make cuts. Now, you had your legislative attorney, so I'm not gonna, if you wanna talk to him, I'm sure he can come up, or I can talk to him, or however you wanna do it. There's ways, yes, you need to reduce costs. And that, the only way you're gonna reduce costs, by the way, is by reducing payroll. Because payroll does hit health insurance, you're absolutely right. Payroll does hit pensions, you're absolutely right. But there's no cost in here that I feel, unless we had a big influx of funds coming from another source, somehow or another, somebody, and I'm not trying to be facetious, but somebody passes away and leaves the city $50 million. Well, now we can abate some of these, we can reduce some of these taxes, but eventually we will run out of the 50 million. The point where we need to go is we need to cut costs. I don't disagree with that. I think if you look at, you go to the very last page on what I had on page 12, the tax levy is a total of $13.9 million. You look at the very bottom of page 12 of the ordinance. You're in the book, you've got to have the ordinance that I handed out today. Okay, if you look at page 12, on the very bottom it shows there's the tax levy. It's $13,966,000. The appropriation that was passed by the council is $48,658,000. So as you can see, we're a long distance away. You take we're not bringing in 48 million right now anyway. So to take 15 million of the levy bill, I'm saying is pretty safe. I can say that out, but in no other way, it's be shut down.
So, sitting in other tax levy meetings for other entities, what confuses the public is when we say it's a zero increase. There is not an increase, but we are carrying over whatever the tax levy was for the prior year, which was what, 4%? 3.9?
Last year, well, all I'm doing is like, and I have to go back and look at it.
Okay.
And misquote it. But this levy here is exactly for these operating levies is being reflected as exactly what was extended last year.
So what people need to understand is when we say it's not a true increase, you're going to see an increase because we're not increasing what we did the previous year, but it still is going to reflect on an increase in the property taxes.
Well, property taxes, maybe one day everybody could have a long discussion on that because it's an extremely complicated situation. Your real estate taxes, even if we keep ours at zero, I can say this because it can happen. If our EAB, which none of us here have any control over, if the assessor lowers the EAB, that doesn't lower the taxes. So for some simple math, if I got, my $30 million levy for the city over $450 million, that's my tax levy percentage. If it drops down to $400 million, everybody's taxes has a possibility of going up. But now you go to the assessor, we have, I don't know, somewhere around 14,000 PIN numbers in Calumet City. Each of those gets separately assessed. And some may go up, some may go down. Okay, so just because my neighbor has this and I have that, well, it doesn't, unless you guys got exactly the same homes, but then again, you gotta look at when you bought them, because that's gonna impact. People that buy homes today, those assessed values be brought up because that becomes the fair market value today. When you sell it, there's an easy way to show it. I sold my home for $200,000, my home value is $200,000. Bought it 20 years ago, it's $50,000. The county's probably assessing that somewhere around $125,000. So the new home, so it's still being undervalued for those that have lived a long time for the, the same house. But that's just one small portion of the computation. When the big businesses, and I call them the big ones, River Oaks, for example, when the mall got somewhere around a 70% assessed valuation reduction, okay? That didn't mean the taxes going to the mall were going to disappear. That's whatever the River Oaks was paying. Now that they got a reduction of 75%. Say the mall was paying $4 million, and I'm just using examples. I don't have all these numbers exactly in my head. Now they're paying $1 million. That other $3 million gets allocated amongst all the different pins in Calumet City. So even if we don't raise our taxes, if the EAB goes down, your tax bill can go up. Because and it's the same with the schools. If property values go down, there's no mechanism in place set by the state that says the tax levies automatically go down. That would keep things where you're trying to get to, but they are both independent numbers. So every time our EAB goes down, that just means our $30 million is getting spread amongst smaller amounts of properties. And that means everybody's getting hit based on their percentage of the pie. I would tell you, single-family homes as a whole, while they are, as a collective whole, make up more of the EAV in the city. When you take River Oaks, a Sears that came off, and these big stores like Target, when they, the mall at one time had an EAV well over 140, 150 million dollars. Today it's under 50. Those taxes didn't disappear; they just floated to the rest of the property owners in Calumet City. And that's why you're seeing such an escalation in rate. That kind of leads to, if you could get new development into the community, whether investing, get a lot of business at that point, especially businesses, or those would be our number one source, big businesses, where they're investing 10, 20, 30 million dollars. When they get assessed, even if you give them the Class 8, they're still going to generate more EAV than that property was when it was vacant. Worse yet, if it's vacant, a lot of times now, because the property values are so minimum, to try to sell them, businesses walk away. The number one mechanism that Cook County had in place was, if you didn't pay your taxes, they can get sold to somebody, and somebody can buy your property for just the value of the taxes. Well, those days are gone. Unless you, a lot of businesses are just walking away. And when you take that big EAV of those businesses and they just close the doors, then all that EAV, Sears had an EAV in excess of $10 million. They used to pay $2.5 million a year or more in taxes. That's gone. EAV's gone. But not the $2.5 million that was allocated to it. That's still being picked up by the rest of the, all, I don't want to say just homeowners, because it's anything that is real estate, that has a real estate tax bill attached to it. So it can be business, it can be apartments, it can be single-family homes. So it's a highly complicated problem that we are existing here in the county, because our EAV, I know I've been here a long time, I don't want to say how old, but I've been here a long, long time. Our EAV used to be over $650 million. 650. So our tax rates were a lot lower. That's because the mall was thriving. We were expanding in the mid-90s. The River Oaks Mall, enclosed. The Target Greatland Mall was built. We were starting to get a few more car dealerships in here. I mean, we lost the Ford dealership too. That was one time on River Oaks Drive. That pays a fraction of the real estate taxes that it did back in the day. That is, when that EAV dropped, the taxes didn't. That started skyrocketing, and it's not just in Calumet City, it's a lot of the south suburbs, because back in 2008, when all the EAVs kind of fell out like the stock market, all of a sudden, our EAV dropped under 300 million. And all of a sudden, our tax rates more or less went up about 75%.
Can I finish? I have one more and then I'm done. So this has to be done by tonight, tomorrow.
Well, I don't know if you can announce something. It's supposed to be tonight, but we have to file tomorrow.
Okay. And so what if we came up with the $15 million? Hear me out. There are 4 people at the library that make $500,000. There are 4 people that working whatever they do up here that make $500,000. So that's $1 million. There are people that make enough money where we could cut that versus increasing a probable tax for residents, which will increase renters' payments, because the homeowner will then pass that down to whomever is renting. So everybody will be affected when we have just a huge number, a huge amount of revenue or income that we pay out to people. We have, like you said, we don't have economic development, but we're paying almost $1 million in economic development employees. For what? And they're hiring every day for that department. I'd rather see them go than see my neighbors leave.
I appreciate it. I'm going to say this again. This is no disrespect. ordinance, like, we can read it, but like you stood there and you said out of your mouth, it's too complex. But not to know that the details of what it is that we need to look for so we can stop some of what's going on. I'm gonna get back to this so I won't get off track. I just wanted to say that I agree with a lot of what you said, Alderman Wilson. But I'm gonna step out and I'm gonna take the opportunity to just accept, I may be the slow one, but I have to ask. Because it just, going through here, everything that's with the dashes, there's nothing coming out of the levy, right? Okay, so that's basically page 2, 3, 4, and just follow along with me, please. Then we get to page 5, then 6, it talks about the insurance department. And it talks about that the $50,000, all of that is what's equaling up to that, what we have on page 12.
Correct.
Then it goes on to talk about the police department. This is all what we pay into the police department from that, again, total amount on page 12, right? So when we talk about some cuts, I don't see us being able to cut a lot in the police department area and or the fire department area unless I don't believe we're short-staffed, and we need to have enough officers and first responders within our community. Then it goes on, the next page it talks about the same thing, the police department, but it only comes down to the total before allocation of the special services, something on it's small. Just hold on, you guys, I want to understand this when I leave here, because it's a crash course, millions of dollars being thrown in your face, and it's just a crash course again, no training, no nothing. Take it home, read it, and figure it out, and I try to do the best that I can. So while we have you, to go on over to 8, nothing, then 9, fire department, again, essential, then we go over to the emergency services. I don't see anything in that is coming out of the levy, and then it talks about the, what is that? Community, so small, economic development, nothing comes out of the levy, so pertaining to that, we can't do anything in those areas where we're losing money. Alderman Wilson, and I agree with you, I calculated over almost $2 million of waste that I see personally, and just doing research on how individuals are being paid salaries that are 2 to 3 times double of what the market value is. So I'm gonna go down just for understanding purposes. We jump over again to the police, nothing's there. Special corporate fund, let's see. Okay. So what we allocated for all of that, even the ones that there is no dollar amount coming out of, that's that appropriation, that's what that means, right?
That ties into the appropriation that was passed back in July, yes.
Okay, so in those areas where we probably do see where we need to make some cuts, it's not coming out of this levy amount, right?
Correct.
Okay, and again, you know, I know especially in, then when you get to page 13, no, I'm gonna stay on page 12. Hold on, bear with me. With the approval of the 13,000 or the levy or the ordinance, will this cause the property taxes to go up again from where it is now?
As I indicated, Alderman, not an increase over last year. So we're telling the public, these are arithmetic numbers, they are balancing. I can't control, none of us here can control how the county assesses property. But my point
That's
is,
the county, I understand the county.
the county is the one that determines the property value of everybody, that ultimately picks up a percentage of what we pass.
Right.
So,
I also do know that the schools were able to, what is it called? Help me, Lord. For us to be able to build like Trump, we got the new building, a referendum that was passed. Will this cause us for the taxes to go up on our end? I get the county portion, but maybe I'm not understanding. Will this cause any of the taxes to go up?
So that I can clearly understand, the schools are not part of our tax levy. Okay, so whatever they do with their bonds, their district tax, whatever they pass, that's their business.
I understand.
But for us, I can tell you that the increase is zero. I can't tell you how it's gonna be on any 7 homes in here, what that means ultimately to your property.
You don't control the
Because
taxes.
that's
It's
not,
gonna go up.
our time, all we can do is pass the levy, and that's what I'm trying to explain. It's the county that takes our levy and then determines what the EAV is on all the different properties in Calumet City. And how they determine that, it's their Ouija board up there that I can't figure out. But they come up with an EAV for all the different businesses, the commercial, industrial, the apartments, all the different things that the county has available. They come up with what the EAV is for each single PIN number in Calumet City. And that is what we would call the denominator.
So this is the same.
I'm not trying to debate it, I just
No,
think
I'm
that's
not
what the
trying to
county,
It's
I
not a
can't,
debate, it's about just wanting to understand what we're voting for. And I apologize if we're rushing it, if, we want to take our time and kind of really get an understanding so we can know what it is that we're voting for.
May I ask, because you said 13 million and it's 31 million, right?
this is just one part of the levy.
Yeah, it's just one part.
Okay.
This was the biggest one, this is what operates your city, more or less.
It's, yeah.
Then the pensions are separate, but they too are part of the operation of the city.
And then,
So that's the 13 on this one, that's why we need an in-depth class or a couple of hours
Yes.
of sitting, because I had it at the school board, I had it at other boards, whereas you come out and you walk us through it, not a crash course. We are not getting and understanding all of this because it's being thrown at us at the last minute. And I want your vote for millions of dollars. Be a dumbass and keep voting for it.
trust me, I understand, because for 4 years, I was learning as I came to meetings.
To have these meetings, we get paid for this, and I want to understand what I'm voting for.
So, and I just want to also, I understand that the departments that you discussed is not coming out the levies. However, the insurance for all of those employees are.
And that's why I stopped there.
Yeah.
It's a huge amount, but I get it, whereas we can't cut from here, those areas, and I get that, but where in here where we can possibly begin to make cuts so we're not going in the future with the same behavior. And I get we need to have that, no, I'm not done, please. No.
So, no, I just wanted to, you can finish on the line. You can finish. After she finished, I wanted to just make a statement. Just go ahead and finish.
So just to go back to 12, that's part of the one levy, but the appropriation is what was allocated for every item or whatever it's called. But then I go over to page 13. This is a different levy, right? It's not the same tax.
It's showing, this ordinance breaks down how the $31,262,000 is being allocated.
Okay.
So we just covered $13,966,967, but it's around there. So you got IMRF, and the levy equals what we're appropriating, because IMRF has no other sources of revenue. IMRF is the pension portion of what the city contributes on behalf of the employees. That we get a bill from every month from IMRF, based on the salaries that we pay, including overtime, except for public safety, so police and fire, because they have their own pensions, which will be covered later. That covers all the pensions of the city. Now, that's just not IMRF. I should also point out that Social Security / Medicare. So everybody, and I'm sure those that are working, we all know you have 6.2 without allowing you to check for Social Security, the employer matches it. 1.45 for Medicare, the employer matches it. So we have that 7.65, just like every other employer in the United States has when it comes to matching Social Security, up to unless somebody's salary exceeds like 185,000.
So the only thing within that area, that those cuts, all the women rules in would come through the insurance if we had ever gotten rid of, I'm just being top heavy in
Yeah.
certain areas.
Is this library fund that's part of this levy?
Correct.
Right.
And that's where I was going next. Whereas we go to page 13, before you took me back to 12, it shows that the levy is 820, or the total is 829,000. So then look at all of that's the insurance all right there alone, right? Am I correct? It's so small.
Well, it's insurance and salaries, pension benefits, those are all the different headings.
Development, travel board.
Is this where they're supposed to give us our 300,000 back?
If the library, let me answer it this way, if the library has surplus, which the library does not have a surplus, that, because they basically get all their funding from taxes. You asked the question, I mean, that question was not posed to me, being posed to me now. It's on the books, so if they ever create a surplus, we'll get it back. Do I believe we're gonna get it back this
No.
year? No, because they're not operating with a surplus. You have to have money, more money come in than you're spending to have a surplus.
But we jazz in the grass.
The area of all of them that you really need to be addressing is when we were going through the appropriation, and I did see, and you did a good job. I think maybe more of a unified effort, but that's how you get these cuts. The cuts don't start in the tax
No, they
levy,
don't.
because the cuts start in that budget, and it doesn't mean that budget, once it got passed in July, doesn't mean it's an absolute. So you can still do things within your own, and again, I'm not telling Bert what to do or Olson, but I'm pretty confident he would know what to say or to do. There's different things you can pass that can control these things. And that's where I sense your frustration, but that's where you need to go. Because cutting more money out of the budget but not eliminating the costs isn't resolving this issue. And not to put the treasurer on the spot, but Mr. Treasurer, because I know we've had discussions, how much do we have in unpaid bills?
Right around $7 million.
$7 million in unpaid bills.
And think about it. So we need to cut costs. And in order to cut the costs, keep in perspective, you saw that last year when we were doing the budget, and I explained that. Last year we lost, I forget the exact number, but it was over $2 million. So we would have had to create a $2 million surplus just to get caught up on the backlog of the $2 million of bills from last year. Because those $2 million of bills have since been paid, and they came out of this year's money. And so this is gonna be a never-ending cycle, kind of like when you're living at home on your own dollars. If you're spending more than you're bringing in, I mean, typically what happens, it's the credit cards that are usually going way up. And people get themselves in a lot of trouble. Well, we don't necessarily, well, the credit cards, I understand it's another story, but for us, we have essentials that are very difficult to cut.
Yeah.
I mean, gasoline is gasoline. I mean, you can't say no gasoline, because I tell you, if you don't have gasoline, I don't think anybody out of police and fire can be riding on bicycles.
Right.
So you need the fuel for them. You need the insurance, because the last thing we want to do is run them and some kind of an accident happens, and we see how the court system is and how they typically negatively are against local governments, so they typically get hit with a lot of lawsuits. You need equipment. That's inevitable. I mean, you can only keep so much together, and I think that departments do, and this is not giving them a pat on the back, but I know they do a lot to keep their equipment in good running order. But eventually it does break down, and the last thing, you don't want that ambulance breaking down and when it's coming to your house. You know, because then all of a sudden money's not an issue. But, so we try to keep up on all those things. We have services that we provide that we cannot decide we're not going to do. We can decide not to buy a washer or dryer at home and go to a laundromat or something. We can't decide on a lot of the things that we do here. I listen, I hear, I understand about the roads, how we want to improve them. You've been inundated by the engineers on our infrastructure for the sewers, the lead lines, everything. There, you know, that all has to be, you know, if we can't get grants, it's gotta come from the city, and that's been the hardest part, because there's not a lot of money left over in the city. Our income is declining, well, it's going up, but it was declining for a while, but our costs are going up. I can tell you, because I've been here as 32 plus years as finance director, when we go into collective bargaining, say what you want, we're not gonna win if we don't give them CPI. We could sit down there and say we're broke, and that arbitrator's gonna give them CPI at a minimum, okay? So we're forced to pick those raises up, and inevitably, our costs go up because we can't control them. You're right, if we, I hate to use that word, but if we let people reduce payroll, it does have a rippling effect. It'll reduce health insurance, it'll reduce pension costs. That has a much more rippling effect than saying, let's not buy 10 cases of toilet paper. It's not gonna make a dent in the budget. So it's the budget time, and as, is not just the budget time, but you can still make decisions today, not on, this is tax levy day, but you can have finance meetings or other meetings where you can sit down and delve into the finances and really look at things, and then talk to your legal advisor on how you could change some of the ordinances to control those costs. But I have to caution that you will do what you will do. I have to caution that to lower anything in this tax levy, which is already set without increases, considering the fact that I already know we need increases, any further reduction of cash flows is just gonna make it harder on the city to be able to operate. Because I know
And you're gonna force some of these people out.
well, that's,
To say, well,
but the guys make those decisions. You can, you just talk to your legal.
We heard a lot tonight, and I want to say to the New Orleans, I know that this is a lot to digest. But my hope moving forward is that, finance director is there. You can make yourself available to them. I mean, I know I have an open line of communication with them. I believe he extends all of that to the council. We have an opportunity to reach out to them and ask them these questions. Also, in addition to that, we have training that we can attend or sign up for to see what we pay for. There's training included in the IML courses. But I want to say that I think that this council is moving in the right direction with our own legislative council. And some of the things you alluded to earlier in terms of, job cuts is probably something that we definitely need to explore. Obviously, we're spending a lot of money in payroll, and next year's budget time, this is something that we can keep in the forefront of our thought process in terms of cutting. And I just hope that we all can continue this path forward with making sure we cross all our eyes. Not all our eyes and crossing all our T's, related to the spending. And, but I would hope that you guys can find some way to have an open line of communication so they can get a better understanding. You guys are not gonna learn this stuff in 1 year. You're not. It's a lot to take in, it's a lot to learn, it's a lot to try to remember. But I do want to keep you guys motivated and encouraged. I don't want you guys to leave the meeting tonight discouraged, frustrated. I want you guys to know that, guys can get a better understanding. It's a lot of hard work that he puts into this. We just don't have money. You say it right. And we have a cash flow problem. So I do want to acknowledge on record, we are moving in the right direction. So I just want us to be aware that we're moving in the right direction with our legislative council. And we have a lot of work to do ahead of us in terms of getting spending under control and, putting the controls and protocols in place to ensure that we can, be more fiscally responsible. That's all I wanted to add to tonight's meeting.
Can I be recognized, please?
Yes.
I appreciate what you said, but I need you to understand that you can't speak for us. I should not have to call to get a training class. That's unprofessional, and I know enough that we're not supposed to be receiving that. The employees here, the mayor, or whoever else is supposed to set up meetings for individuals to come in and teach us, not teaching us in depth. So I'm not going to chase people to get information that I know that's what they're being paid for. They're not being paid to come and just, there you go, that's what you're used to. See, we're not used to that. I'm not used to that. And that's what accountability is, Alderman Gardner. I appreciate it, but I need you fully have our backs. Don't send us to call someone. Advocate with us to ask for the proper classes. Advocate with us asking, we look online for extra training. We don't see any.
Have you reached out to the churches?
We've reached out, we've asked for training and other things. You've been here. It's going along, but don't discredit or just send us to keep looking for people. That's the problem. We're accepting behavior from people that are being paid to do jobs. And that's why we're sitting here untrained, just like a lot of the Chicago aldermen. So I'm saying, respect us when we're asking for that, not a crash course, not to go look for them.
No, but I think you misinterpreted
No,
the
I
whole
didn't.
statement. The statement was just, did you guys misinterpret that? Alderwoman Wilson?
No,
I interpreted it for
yeah.
me, the way I took that to me. I don't mean any harm. All I'm saying is respect that we should not have to chase them. We've sent the mayor emails, we've sent other people emails. That's all I'm saying. Respect me as a city councilwoman and say, hey, let me put together, you guys come an hour or two and let's go through these books. That's what we're getting paid for. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, respect. Yes, sir.
I think we already highlighted out the IMRF. The IMRF tax levy, $1,847,132. It's made up of money going to IMRF and money going to U.S. Treasury for FICA Medicare. The library levy on page 14 is extended at the same dollar amount as last year, which is $1,869,660. Moving on, and
Can we remove the library?
actually, they could really contemplate it because the library has its own board.
The library is
Wasting our money and not educating our children.
But it's still a city asset. And
It is the largest funneling system of money in this city,
it's still a city asset, so that's
larger than the cartel.
again,
4 people, $500,000 in salaries.
that is definitely something that can be addressed in our salary report. Not in this moment when we're just speaking about the tax levy, which is only a certain percentage of inflows of funds that we are expecting. So, again, it's still a city asset when we do actually manage it from as much of a perspective as we can, being an independent internal body of government. It still falls under the umbrella of the city council.
So then that leaves the question to ask, you said manage. city's
Yes.
aspect. And I know that's not for here, that's where we need to get legal counsel to check into where is our legal stand to, figure out how to
No,
stop.
the mayor, it's not even the treasurer, the treasurer's not over it either. Oh, what she was saying is the treasurer is not the treasurer. The mayor appoints the library board makes a decision for the library. The mayor's people are on the library board. The mayor's family makes $500,000 in the library. We are not seeing anything. We are spending money. They don't even have books.
So how do we stop it? We need
I don't know, but I don't feel comfortable, Alderwoman, with making the residents pay for this in taxes. But then again, I spent several years saying stop jazzing in the grass, and your kids can't go in there and do a science project. And now it's tax levy time. This council chamber should be packed because we are making a decision that will affect their households. And the fact that we have half a dozen people here is a problem.
All right, John, in this booklet, is this the one that reflects the past years of the library's operating budget?
Yes, it does.
Just off, as much as you remember, is this an increase in the levy portion of this particular year? Is this a substantial increase from the many years? So let's just go back 5 years. So to say.
The library levy, under the history of city levies, it went back in 2014. The levy was $1,847,000. It's gone up, it's gone down, and then it's been pretty steady in the $1,800,000 range, and it's still in the $1,800,000 range. I'm just commenting on the history, please. I can tell you that the levy going back in the 1990s was much higher, and it was cut back then, but that was the idea then.
So we're still straddling around the regular operating costs as it has been for the last decade.
But a decade ago, my kid could go in and get a library card.
Not-
A decade
not
ago,
saying-
my kid could go look for a job on the computer. A decade ago, we had services. Now we have a $500,000 cafe that barely made $30,000. We have salaries that are too high. We have party after party. Nothing for the youth or young adults in our community. And as a taxpayer, where the library sits in my ward, I cannot continue to extend money to a failing library system.
Okay, can you speak to any program that the library offers?
None. They offer nothing. They offer how to set up a party for the mayor and his family, how to break it down. That's it. That's all they offer. They offer nothing.
So.
Unless you all are having a 3rd and 4th ward meeting, there is nothing there.
That is not on the agenda, and,
Okay, here we go. Russell.
yeah, I mean, I think we've gone way off base of what we're supposed to be doing this evening, so, but we need to get back on track. But I'm trying to give some context to this whole library situation, like it's just,
Mr. Chairman,
Hey.
if I may.
It's trash.
Yes, correct comment. In 2014, the library tax levy was $1,847,000. So in the past 10 years, it has remained virtually the same.
Except for the services that it offers. I cannot pay taxes somewhere and I'm getting nothing for the taxes that I'm paying. At the end of the day, I live in the 2nd ward. I'm of the 2nd ward. The library is in the 2nd ward. They owe this council, this city money. And they owe an apology to the residents of Calumet City. Our kids can't be educated. You can't go look for a job. It's not a warming center. It's not a cooling center. It is nothing but a play field for funneling funds.
Anyone else?
I'll move on to fire pension. Fire pension levy expended is $5,314,268. The police pension fund is $8,245,452. Those levies come from actuarial reports that are provided by the actuaries. And I know, again, some aldermen on here, but we've gone over this many times in the past. Our bond rating carries a lot of weight to properly funding the pensions. We hear about it all the time in the state, and other cities of Chicago as well, other ones that don't fund their pensions. We want to keep our, we want to try to improve on our bond rating. One of the things that they educated us, if I can use the term, suggested to us, whatever you like to use, is that they will always look at the percentage that we do on funding of our pensions. I don't make the number up, the number comes from third-party actuaries, that's the recommended numbers, and so we levy what is required so that when our audit reports come on April 30th, and I know those are very complicated and long, but in the back, there are things called contributions to the fireman's pension fund, contributions to the police pension fund, and it shows what is the actuarial required and how much did the city pay. And I know over the last 2 years, we've been making those pluses, and not a lot, maybe 5,000, maybe 50,000 over. But the point being is, we don't want to underfund the pensions. So we've been working on that very aggressively, and that's been a long project over the years, decades, because we moved it up incrementally over the years to the point now where we're letting it need to be on the funding, absent some major changes in the state passing laws that may create something new that we have to fund, because the statutes control the benefits of our police and firemen. All we control is the salaries, but we do not control the computations for the pensions, definitions of disability and so forth. That's all set by statute. And we, though, have to follow the rules. Not wanna, have to.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
We talked about in the event if this possibly passes, that the taxes could go up, but we have not talked about if it does not pass, what happens, what could possibly happen within the city.
Please.
Because we focusing on one thing but not both, I like to look at the whole picture. So can you give me the other half of the picture?
If we don't pass a tax levy, we will not get any distributions next year. And if we do pass it, pass the first installment date, we will automatically be precluded from getting any contributions until the second. But if we don't pass it before the county does their final extensions, then there is no levy, period.
But we can pass it with just taking care of our first responders. I mean, I know and I apologize, John, because I know you put a lot of work into this. But if it were the case where we say, hey, we're only passing the levy for police and fire.
Then we have to consider.
Well, the levy,
Go ahead.
the levy, well,
We need an attorney here.
the levy is for police and fire, because as you notice,
The
all
bulk of
salaries
it,
are
yeah.
police and fire. No other department's getting salaries from the levy. And health insurance, but the health insurance is a combination of all our retirees, it's our actives, it's the police, it's the fire. There's $400,000 for the union, which is local 150, but that's not even covering the total cost of that union's health insurance. And then there's a workers' comp. And the workers' comp can come from many departments, but I will tell you, the departments with more manpower typically have more workers' comp cases. So we're helping fund that. And then there's our general liability, which is basically 1/5 of what the actual premium is. So there's no tax dollars in the corporate levy that are being, that's why you see all that, and that's why I'm confident, and that's been consistent in years gone by. It's pretty much relegated to just public safety and health insurance. Health insurance, general liability, workman's comp, public safety salaries. That's it. Nothing else. And that's not even fully funding all of their salaries. Because again, you look at the appropriation is what we passed. The appropriation was pretty much based on what we anticipated we were going to spend, based on analysis of all of the payroll and what anticipated union increases or union increases that are already negotiated. And based on that, that goes into the appropriation. Come back and look at the tax levy, you'll see that the tax levy is not maybe funded in some cases, maybe 60%, maybe 20% of the salaries. But I can assure you the salaries are going to be spent unless we don't hire anybody, and a lot of people quit, and then we don't have to replace. Well, I don't know how that'll work. That's up to the city council, but if we keep the numbers up, we're going to spend it all. And our health insurance is we're self-funded, and it's all we can do. Otherwise, we'd be premium-based if we go through the roof. What do I mean by self-funded? We pay the first $125,000 of all claims, of all participants in the plan. There's a stop loss that picks up thereafter. So if you're a family of 5, we can be funded. If they're in the PPO program, it's a little different. There's a lot of nuances. We read another back on that. We have a specific stop loss that caps, I think, and I don't even know the names, but I think it was 5 or 6 that went over that number. So it means those individuals, whether they were spouses, employee, retiree, children, we hit the 125 and the insurance picks up. We have an aggregate stop loss that says if we go way up to a certain level, I think ours is somewhere in the 7 million range, then 100% of the claims are covered. So I can't control, nor can anybody here control how many times you go to the doctor. Prescriptions and are covered under this plan. And so you'll see our health insurance could look like the stock market on any given day. When you're here, when you're here, when you're here, when you're here. Monthly payments can be like that because it all depends when the claims come through. But if you notice, there's over $5.5 million, and I do believe, based on current projection, that the treasurer and I have looked at, we're going to exceed that. And that way, we're not going to exceed it by just $50. It's probably going to be by $1 million. So that's the reason, and that's everybody. So you can't really, well, it's everybody but 150, because 150 has their own insurance. So we have all that exposure there. That's been there since I've been here. We've looked at being premium-based, but the base premium on our history, they're not going to come in here and say, we're going to charge you $2 million for your health insurance, and you're dropping $5 and $6 million in years past. And there's no refunds when they set those up. If you get a good year or a bad year, they're going to ding you twice as hard when you want to renew, and then the point being is, I'm going into a lot of detail. We've looked at these options several times in the past, not just one time by me. There was even insurance committees that were set up years gone by. It is the plan we have. It is the best plan, the most economic plan for the city. Not that we can't control what people can say.
What if we don't extend the 1.8 million to the library?
I know enough about the library to tell you that the library, while it is appointed by the mayor, has its own sections in the Illinois statutes. They pass their own levy. They pass their own appropriation. They give it to us to put in here. It isn't for us to critique. I've seen where if you wish to critique them and cut them, library boards have successfully gone to the courts and got their money reinstated. We don't have oversight over the library. The closest we have to oversight over the library is when the mayor appoints those people to serve on the board. That's supposed to be with the advice and consent of the city council.
Never.
Once they're there, It's it. Now, you could talk to your attorney, legislative counsel, and see what other options are there. But I'm telling you, because I've seen this because of other audits that I've done or other communities where the city wanted to cut the tax levy, did cut the tax levy. They didn't even care, they said we're cutting it. And the library board took them to court, their attorneys, and the village appropriately lost because there's enough court cases there that says municipalities cannot do that. So it's not like you have a lot of, the best we can do is you hope that the library board acts, and I hear what everything you said, I hope that the library acts in a very prudent manner, reflective of our town, and not overexpend, try to keep their costs down, try not, if they can do all that, there typically isn't any problems with the library levy coming in. Those are all things I guess you can voice with the mayor, talk to your legislative council.
I don't even understand why the mayor not here.
But I'm telling you, because I know that you could talk to Bert, he's going to tell you the same thing I did.
That's what we really need to talk to in regards to when and how can we change certain things, that's not in this levy package. You talk about the insurance and you talk about how the insurance here and the pensions is the best of the best. You just don't get that anymore when you go into real corporate. You don't get that even in some of the highest judicial systems. And maybe, and I know it's not here, we need to look into at a certain point, grandfather in and after the fact, you go into a different pension. I don't know if that's possible, but I do know of companies that's done that. You know, because if we continue with this city is going to be bankrupt because it's growing, the salaries are growing, then the taxes are going to continue to grow. You know, just by learning a little of this, you know. So again, I know it can't be addressed here, but I'm asking for us again to talk about that before the budget meeting that comes up. Talk about in depth with council being here, so we can ask those questions. How do we stop salaries from being implemented when we're in a deficit and the city council voted to not have that? And some other stuff. So that's it.
All right, with that, can I have a motion to approve the item number 4 as presented?
Did we talk about special service? Oh, that's not. That's the second one. Okay. Second.
Motion by Alderman Johnson, second by Alderman Harvey.
Discussion. Discussion. I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem. And so it's not a real discussion. I just want to let my council know why I will not be voting for this tax levy. Because there are some changes that I would like to have seen. And I know we are running down on time. I just cannot put our residents in jeopardy, continue jeopardy. People that work hard to live here. And we spend a lot of money here to live so poorly. This is a poorly run city with a poorly run mayor that couldn't even be here to talk about these taxes. Somebody go to South Holland and get him out his house. So I just wanted to let you know why I will be voting no. It just doesn't sit well with me. I know what it is to have taxes hit you like a brick every year. And we don't even have the things that these taxes say we should have.
So I'm gonna also, and I'll put it on record when I cast my vote that I am not in favor. And it's because one, I'm gonna call it what it is, a crash course. I'm gonna be the bold one and say that I've been here 8 months and we have only had one in-depth meeting when it was close to passing the budget. My concern is voting for something that I did get a quick understanding about what's before me in the packet, but I can't get a clear answer on, and I'm looking for a clear answer because of the lack of education. Yeah, I know I will get it, but a yes or no, if the property taxes can go up, and I understand the portion about Cook County, we can't, assume what they will do, but from our end, will there be any adjustments that we had for us approving this amount? So again, receiving an $8,000 tax bill this year, that went up from 5,000, and then when I consider looking at my neighbors, being all races, black, white, Hispanic, elderlies, where they are literally having problems with their bill, it's a no for me.
Anyone else have something to add? No? All right. Now, I too also have a statement, and hopefully, if there's any member of the public that isn't clear as to what we are voting on, again, the tax levy, and I hope you all heard what John was saying, that it is solely for the purposes of paying obligations as it pertains to our public safety. Right?
Pretty much, sure.
Public safety, fire department, police department, and the library, who we're not increasing any operational obligations that we have paid for the past decade. Then I understand my colleague's sentiment about the services. That is a management issue. We could definitely seek some guidance from our legal counsel now that we have that. But at this moment, we can call roll. Tillman is still there?
Yes, he's still here.
Is that a vote? I'm calling.
She's calling you for a vote.
I said yes.
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 Yes,
We heard you.
We heard you. We heard you.
Yes.
Sorry, it was breaking up.
It's a no, but I want on record that, because of the crash course, and lack of training fully. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I would like for this to go on record because I know how y'all little sneaky mayor like to make things sound. It is not that we do not support first responders. I do not support taxing residents out of their homes. And I do not support the overspending here in Calumet City, so it's a no.
All right, item number 5. Is there a motion to approve item number 5, special service area of the city of Calumet City for the 2024 tax levy extended in the year 2025 for the fiscal year May 1 of 25 to April 30th of 2026?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Carter, second by Alderman Harvey.
Are we gonna discuss it? Oh, should have discussed it first.
John, would you like to address this also? Technically the same thing. We've already looked at special service, I think it's
Special service won't be in there, we're getting appropriate.
It's in the book.
The special service area was created back in the 90s. It was based on a disproportionate amount of public safety going to the River Oak shopping area, east, west, and as well as across the river. Work was done to prove that there was a disproportionate amount, and at the time that the work was done, it was estimated that the additional cost to the city, above and beyond how other parts of the city were being serviced, that the cost would be up to $1.2 million. We have not done another study since. It would not seem to make sense, because if we're not levying more than 1.2 million, we don't need to come up with another one that goes to 2.5 million if we're going to keep the levy down. The reason I say that is because when we passed the special service area, it is in the appropriation ordinance, and you'll see it was in the appropriation ordinance. It's in the back. We did appropriate 1.2 million because that's what we're allowed to do. However, in the past 25 plus years, when it first started, the city council elected to just pass $400,000 those tax dollars are only levied in the special service area, which is River Oaks East, West, and slightly across the river where Home Depot is in those areas. It is not in fact being borne by residents. It was,
Is this in the book?
yeah,
The book you told me what we
the
didn't.
special service levy will be in there because it doesn't have, it's not gonna have a lot of the detail because it's just one line item.
You see what I mean? He told me we wasn't looking at the books, but here you go about to ask me to vote on it, and I asked you to go through the books.
Well, you still got it, right?
You see what I mean? Okay, so, okay, go ahead.
Anyway, Alderman, this was, I will tell you, we had discussions on this. That is the fact, when we passed this budget, the appropriation ordinance, we did have at-length discussion. Now, what one might consider in-depth may not meet the same definition of standard as others, but it was discussed, and at that time, I even brought up, we typically will put this on a levy, it's its own levy, because it's a special service area, it's not the city levy, and so decades ago, we dropped it from 400,000 to 300,000. I've not had any of the city council come before me at any time and says, should we raise it? So even when it was discussed on December 4th, I asked the question and I said, this is what has been in the past, do you want to keep it the same? And that was the consensus of the city council. So I left it the same. Again, this is a levy that's only going to be borne on in the River Oaks shopping area. And we lowered it to 300,000. That was done several, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, maybe a little more. And that's the whole premise of this ordinance. It's not going to have all the in-depth stuff that you see. And by the way, this is for public safety.
Explain this one, is that the page with the special levy? Yeah, special service levy. In the book, it talks about the taxes from, I guess, going to a little over 1.6% in 2024. Can you explain that a little bit to us, or me?
All right, okay, are you looking at the charts?
Yes, sir. That's, well, the special services area, EAB, the tax rate, that's what you're discussing.
Right.
Okay,
When this was first created, there were two levies.
okay.
You have questions, it's a little more complicated, this is a long bond. There was a bond that was also issued, it took care of doing repairs to the water tower. It also took, also did some of the repairs to the traffic signals on River Oaks Drive and Torrance Avenue. So a bond was issued of approximately $1.8 million. That bond has since been paid off, and you can see where it says tax rates, debt service. You can see in 2019, it stays at zero because it's not being extended. What happened in 18 is not, it was beyond our control. The county failed to levy it in 17, so they had to pick it back up in 18. So that's the only reason.
At that top, right?
Right, I'm just talking about now. The operating levies themselves, if you look, remember I told you the River Oaks Shopping Center had a substantial, this is just the River Oaks area, and this is already reduced.
Which year was that?
Which year is what?
The River Oaks, where the taxes were up.
This is starting the year 2014, this chart, so I can talk to you, I can't talk about prior years. And I can't talk about specifics. In 2018, if you just follow, we no longer have the debt service, the bonds were paid, so that levy fell off the books, because we don't need to do it, we didn't issue another bond. The operating levy, as you see, as a percentage, the dollar amount, whether it was 400,000 back then or 300,000, look at the EAV, and you can see how the EAV back in 14 was 71 million. As high as 2020, it was at 80 million. And you can see as of 24, it's down to 30 million. This is where I was talking about, this is just a special service area. Now, why does the percentage look so high? Because the EAV went down. It isn't that there were more taxes created. This is the same kind of analogy you can use to the city as a whole, and that this is still EAV for the city. And when that EAV to the River Oaks goes down, and the taxes that mall once paid, real estate taxes, that is, that taxes just got reallocated to the rest of the taxpayers. So that you can see here that the rate, because of what happened in the shopping center since 2000, because this model, these shopping centers were paying a significant amount of tax dollars. Those tax dollars just got reallocated. I mean, they still pay, but they pay a whole lot less. And the rest of it to the other taxpayers, for the schools, the townships, the county, the city, and every taxing body, there are about 12 of them on there. That makes sense? That helps at least. I knew, and all of it, I did give it okay. I guess for the new alderman, I apologize, I never made myself clear. A lot of the sitting aldermen have talked to me in the past. I give this information out, and as I said, if you have any questions, give me a call, because I can't predict what any one of you might have as a question. So instead of talking about something that nobody cares about, I'd rather hear feedback. That's where we was getting at. If you call me and say, John, go to this page, I can't understand. I'll do it in a heartbeat, because I think all the aldermen know that if someone calls, I will answer, and I will answer their questions the best that I know, especially if it's a product, something of my work product. So, with that understanding, I just hope as we move forward, I know this is a crash course, but there's a lot, and this is, you know, there's a lot of managing, even what you're doing here, and you can find yourself 8 hours a day just trying to understand a lot of this stuff. And it is, and so that's what I've been here a long time, and I think the city council knows I really work really hard at trying to do this better. I still do with the city council and county. You guys say, put that in the levy, I put it in the levy. You know, not the mayor telling me to put it in the levy, it's the council.
I appreciate that. It is, I would like for us to meet before the budget so we can dive into some things. But I appreciate that, and I just want to know what I'm voting on. So I'm not going to say that I'm going to know it in depth, because I know it takes a lot. But when it comes to millions of dollars and then seeing the things that are going on, I just want to make sure that I'm understanding and I can make a financially stable, sound vote. So that's all. I was not trying to be rude, but sometimes you got to pull it out. Like, I need help here.
I think the years gone by, Alderman, we had a meeting, typically a special meeting in November. One of the reasons we're meeting today is that once the city council announces the tax, and you only have to announce it, but it has to be announced at a meeting. When we say there's a zero increase, we can announce it. You can say the dollar amount is the same as last year, it's a zero increase. That facilitates the truth in taxation requirements. All right, if we're not going over 5%, or if we're not going over 5%, we don't have to have a public hearing. So if we announce that meeting we're going to do 4.5, that's good enough. There's no public hearing. But at that meeting, and that when I had that spreadsheet on the December 4th, and I tried to make it a little bigger, but I showed everybody the mechanics of how this tax levy is put together, how I took info from last year and brought it forward, and how we came to being with how we're going to come up with the tax levy for this year. And in the booklet, I could show in here the actuarial valuations from the pension funds that are sent to us that shows what the recommended tax levies are. I want you to also, when you're looking at this, and this kind of is just throwing it out there, remember we only collect 80%, by the way, of our tax levy. So even when you're looking at this, we're only collecting 80%. So if you look at the police and fire levies, I'm going to tell you right now, they're higher. They're not 120% higher than the recommended levy, but they are higher because I know if it's just going to be based on the levy dollars, we're going to be 20% short. And we don't have funds that pick up 20%. So we have, and this has been discussed over years, so sometimes I may not always fully grasp that there are new people on the board, and this year is actually 3. It's probably only 2 times I've seen so many new ones on the board at the same time. And a lot of things I'm used to because they've gone through these routines with me. And it gets to be repetitive. Sometimes they tell me, okay, we got it, John, just move on. And so I will make it a point to, when something that I'm presenting, you'll get it in an email, I'll explain it in an email to a certain level, and then I usually hope that you'll say, call me, and then say, John, what about this, what about that? And then, and believe me, I've had phone calls with aldermen that have gone on over an hour. And because inevitably it always leads to more questions to something else, but the whole point is I will be there to answer.
And when you said it, John, I appreciate you for cleaning that up. But when you said it, she didn't punch you in the head. She punched you in the head. I told you in the spirit of love. In the spirit of being cordial.
He was sticking up for you, John, and all I want to do is understand. I've been bamboozled with the credit cards and everything. I don't need to be bamboozled again, okay?
So if I may, so I just want to ensure that I am hearing everything correctly. The special service area does not include the senior buildings or,
Well, yes.
it does include.
It includes everything in River Oaks, East and West, so I.
See, that's where I don't want to increase, yeah, okay.
Those buildings are managed, those are managed by.
Wait a minute, there's too many people talking, I can't.
Go ahead, Jay.
I'm sorry. Maybe we should finish to complete the narrative on the special service levy. There being two, there's only one being levied now. That is designated for supplementing our public safety. Because we make a lot of police runs to the mall area. We also make a lot of fire runs to the senior buildings, almost daily. Because the fire alarms go off, and once the fire alarm goes off, the fire department has to respond. And the chief is here, and he's nodding his head. They make daily trips to the senior victory center or whatever they're called now. So that being said, I will put a motion, since this is money being transferred from one fund of the city to another, I will put a motion on the agenda to be approved by the city council to allow me to transfer that money out of the special service area to help supplement public safety costs in the corporate fund. I believe we just did one about 6
Yeah.
weeks.
Okay.
The transfer of those monies does appear on the council agenda for your approval.
I apologize, I forgot about the Victory Center, the
Yeah.
Heritage Center. But I look at them because they're buildings that are not co-ops. They're not co-ops, I think they're.
No, they're not co-ops, they're all individual rentals.
For rentals, so yes, some of them may get passed on, but.
Yeah, it's gonna get passed on.
So
So they rental agreement, it gets passed on to them.
But their EAV, okay, now I can't answer that today.
Yeah.
But their EAV as a percentage of the rest of the EAV is not like 80% of this money, it's a much smaller percentage. But I can also, and thank you, Jerry, when it was determined about the disproportionate calls, I apologize, I think we'll talk about the mall. But as Jerry says, and I'm honoring go to my office, I can tell you when an alarm rings at any of those buildings, it brings out the entire fire department, all the equipment, it could be a structure fire. So, police would also go to there. Those add, when I say they're adding a disproportionate, think about it, where else in the city do you see fire trucks going in the same block? All the time, every day. That's why the special service area was created.
The seniors put on a pot of water, and then they sit down and they fall asleep, and then the fire alarm goes off.
Anyway, does that help? Alderman, or did that clarify?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem?
That's it? All right, is there a motion to approve item number 5 as presented?
I thought we did that already.
All right, yeah, that's right. Call roll call.
He should be walking back in.
One.
Yes.
This is for item number 2.
Number 5.
Make the 6 second. Madam, yes.
Yes. Yes. Okay, you on. Tillman? He said yes.
All right, with that, 7 voting yes, 0 voting no. No further business to come before this council. We can have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Hood, second by Alderman Harvey. Meeting adjourned.